Hello, 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 and also hello. Welcome to the Dadless Soul Sessions. It's the 6th of March 2025, and we've got a fun-packed show, as always, for you. It's Dadless Soul on a live stream, chatting to the world, trying to find out what's going on with you and what's going on in the world of parenting and fatherhood. Should we do the menu thing? This is where I get to live out my daytime TV fantasy, I guess. 8:30, very soon, coming up, Dan Flanagan's Dadless Soul update. He is our Uberlord and leader. He will tell you what's going on in the Dadless Soul world. 8:45, Alex's conflict management clinic. You've been sending your questions in. He's got 3 to answer this evening, and he'll give you the resolutions that you need to take forward. And then our main guest of the evening, 9 p.m., Professor Anna Tarrant of the University of Lincoln. They've launched the Father Inclusion Hub. And so we're going to be finding about what that is, what it involves, and how it works, and how we can make use of it as well. That's from 9 o'clock with an actual professor on this. I know having someone who knows what they're talking about is, to be honest, quite a scary prospect here. Now, I'm going to play the chat that I recorded with Dan yesterday. I'm going to play it out. I'm working with a new way of playing stuff out on here that's going to cut my workload, but it might not work. If you're a regular Dadless Soul Sessions viewer, you'll know shambolicness is part of the makeup of the show. So if this is shambolic, then well, you came here, you knew what to expect. You know, you pays your money, he takes your choice, and all that. It is the Dadless Soul Sessions, and it wouldn't be the Dadless Soul Sessions without Dan Lasoul, Dan Flanagan. Hello, good morning, welcome, evening, afternoon.
Good evening, welcome. That sounds, who was that? Was that David Frost?
It was David Frost, but as a fan of the band Carter USM, I can only ever think of the Only Living Boy in New Cross, the excellent song that starts off with "Hello, good evening, welcome to Nothing Much."
Well, there you go, another highly educational session.
Yeah, exactly. Let's scrap everything else and just talk about Carter USM for the next however long there is on the sessions. Maybe I'll do that.
Fruit bat, Jim. Fruit bat, Jim.
I'm surprised that, actually, I say I'm surprised. I don't know if there might well be one, but I'd be surprised maybe if there wasn't a like a Carter podcast going through each song individually and trying to come up with the hidden meanings or whatever. And if there isn't, does that mean I have to do it?
Yeah, you've just given yourself a shed load of homework for 3 listeners.
Crikey.
Yeah. Or there's probably a covers band that could do it for you.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I'll just be the ideas guy and I'll put it to them.
Yeah, that's the role I do. And then I just give lots of people lots of work. Again, by when? Really?
Delegation. Okay. Delegation. That's what you need.
So I'm Roy Castle and Norris McWhirter.
All rolled.
You're Cheryl Baker then.
I mean, I could fulfill that role if we needed to.
Would you rip off your skirt?
Yeah, always.
Making your mind up.
Absolutely, always. Definitely, I'd do that.
I do have a Cheryl Baker story, actually. She used to live in Tunbridge Wells, where I was from. And one day I saw her outside of the local picture house, and she was looking at the films coming up. And I said, "Oh, Cheryl, what are you doing? Making your mind up?"
I bet she hated it, right?
Yeah, she just looked scornfully at me. I was so pleased with myself.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great one. I mean, it's not a celebrity one, but I was running one day and I went past the barbershop in our village and there were 3 blokes outside waiting to get in, waiting for it to open up. And I just looked at them and went, "What's this? The barbecue?" None of them. Not a smile from any of them.
They ganged up and then beat you up.
Yeah, exactly. Too right as well.
They all had razors and stuff like that. It all got very messy. Very Gangs of London.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God. That program's too much. My wife's really into it. I'll come into the room and there'll be like someone with like cuts all over their body and salt being poured in them. And oh God.
Well, she'll be very happy to know the series 3 comes up very, very soon. First couple of episodes, random conversation, but he goes into a pub, the main protagonist, and has a ruck, and he's stabbing people with darts. And it's like, this is the best use of darts since an episode of Bullseye.
Hey. And then he got his bus fare home.
Then he got a speedboat, but he lived in a tower block in Birmingham.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if this is a record 3.5 minutes in, and we've not even touched on anything to do with Dad Soul, but it feels correct. It feels like
Oh, that's what we would do. Oh, right. Yeah, I did
Yeah.
not get the facts.
no,
Sorry.
it does feel like the way we operate this section of the Dad Soul sessions. I'm fine with that.
Would you like some updates?
Yeah, go on then. What is going on?
Okay, so when this goes out, the next play date will be Saturday, the 8th of March, at Plus X over in Brighton. And we've got the lovely Rich Ford, who is an amazing children's author. He's going to do some reading and some catching up and showing the kids how to write their own books. And he's got a book called Uncle Duncan Makes Pancakes, which, considering what the day or the week is, very, very relevant.
Yes, flipping brilliant, that, isn't it?
Whoa! It'll be a crepe sauce.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, I've seen the like some of the pictures of that book, and it looks really beautiful. It looks really, really nicely done, and I think that'll be an amazing session.
Yeah. So we've got that. Then we've got our Dad's Only session in Worthing, where we've got the lovely author, podcaster, legendary chap that is Sam Delaney coming to do a Q&A, a book signing and an interview. So if you don't know Sam's work, he's a very he handles men's mental health crisis in a very interesting blokey way, which is very easy to resonate with us. So I'm very, very excited. He's coming all the way down from that there London. So tickets for that are available. There are a limited amount available because of space, and we know when it goes public, it will sell out because he's quite a popular boy. So any of our local community, get your tickets now. And then at the end of the month, Saturday the 29th, we will have the premiere of our rap video, Dads, Drums and Sums. So this is a project we've been working on the last couple of months. We've got all the dads and kids in the community to tell us what they like about maths, what they hate about maths, put it into some lyrics with a very, very kick-ass beat, created an amazing video. So we thought, best way to show it off, take over the lovely cafe at Audio Active in Worthing on a Saturday afternoon, fill it with lovely families. I'm going to have some performances from some of the guys who are featured in the video. We're to see the video, do some thank yous, have a range of activities, and it's 3 till 5 on Saturday afternoon. And the day after is Mother's Day. So it's a really nice way for the Dadless Oldies to have a nice present to say thank you to all the Mumless Oldies.
Oh, lovely. A nice family activity to do, watching some I mean, I'm so excited to see this video. I really am. And I just think it's such a brilliant idea. And I'm fascinated to see I've seen little clips and little ideas and the workshops and stuff, and it's a very exciting project, and I am looking forward to finding out more.
Yeah, well, I will see it for the very first time this Friday. We're having the final round of edits with the client, and as much as I want to do it, I've had to step away because you do a lot of film work yourself. There's nothing worse than putting it out to people when everybody imagines they're the next Spielberg, and I go, no, yeah, can we just reshoot that? I go, no, because that's actually 4 weeks worth of work to do that 30 seconds. So thanks for your ideas, but no. So I've stepped back and left it to the lovely Christian from Daza Production, who does a lot of our films, and his brief was to run riot and be heavily influenced by the Beastie Boys videos.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'm really glad you decided to do that, because otherwise I've got these images of an apprentice task. You know, when they have to do any kind of creative task and they're either there with a film editor or they're with a graphic designer, and you just see the life being sucked out of this creative professional as these complete imbeciles are going, can we twist it around and do this and that and that? And like, oh no, don't do that.
No, we can't. So it's a lesson. Also, I don't have the time. As much as I would love to do, more, my role is a producer. I put the best people for the job and let them get on with it. I've got a little, I wrap a few bars in it, so that ticks a box for me. And then I've got to organise the party and the reports and the red tape. So
admin, yeah.
Yeah, all the really sexy things that come with, being the next Suge Knight.
Yeah, I was going to say you don't read a lot about the autobiography of the Beastie Boys admin guy, do you?
There
But
was a lot of red tape that needed to be done for those giant inflatable willies and girls in crates. And who organised all the Budweiser deliveries,
exactly, yeah. Who went and took back all the VW caps to the cars? Yeah, those things.
Exactly, some poor blighter. But yeah, so that is me in this programme. But yeah, it'd be a lovely way. It's only, I think, of like a 70 capacity venue. So it's for all the dads, the kids, the mums, the grannies, the aunties, the friends of dads, so to come together to watch it, and let the artists who are heavily involved in it actually do some performances of their own work as well.
Great.
So really, really, really looking forward to that.
And I believe that it's then going to be shown for the first time anyone else on the Dadless Soul Extra
Oh yes,
show. Yeah.
very early April before it goes globally viral.
Mhm.
We hope. Yeah. So we'll have some updates on that. I would have had some updates to share about that, but I've not actually done the project yet. Yeah.
I mean,
But there, I put it there and I put it there and I do it like that.
mhm.
But no, I need a little bit of breathing space and some chat with the client to make sure they're happy with my crazy ideas. Because ultimately they are footing the bill.
Yes. So they should have a little bit of a say over things, I suppose.
Yeah.
Right.
That's it. Oh, and the baby show. So anybody that is going to the baby show up at XL, this it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in London. Keep an eye out for our friend Nathan, official dad bag. Brilliant young boy. He's created almost a very funky nappy bag for dads. So they've got a stall up there, and we're going to be heavily working with them going forward as part of it is the sponsor of our new podcast, or our existing podcast, the new sponsor.
The new sponsor of our existing podcast at Booth Q29. If anyone is interested, Booth Q29. That's where he's going to be.
Wicked. So that's enough to keep us busy and out of trouble and out of detention.
Yeah, I'm just going to play hell with trying to organise this Carter USM podcast, isn't it?
Well, no, I think you're just being defeatist. I think if you slept less and worked more, then you would.
Okay. I've had bosses like that before. Dan Flanagan, thank you very much.
Cheers.
And there you go. That is Dan Flanagan talking about what is going on with Dadless Soul. On the way very soon, we're going to have Alex, our conflict management guru, who'll be here answering your questions. And don't forget, at 9 o'clock, we have Anna Tarrant, Professor Anna Tarrant, who's the brains behind the Father Inclusion Hub at the University of Lincoln. We'll find out what that's all about and how it affects dads and how you can get some help from that a little bit later on after 9 o'clock. First of all, though, here's Stuart, one of our Dadless Soulies, talking about an amazing thing that him and a couple of others are doing.
Hiya, so yeah, I'm Stuart. I am running for Dadless Soul as I did last year. Last year we ran 10k and managed to raise a decent amount of money for Dadless Soul, which was great. It was my first 10k I'd ever run for a medal, and I loved it, and I got the bug, and I continued doing it. So when Dan asked myself and Ben in particular to do it again, we said yes, of course, because Dadless Soul means so much to us. And we were chatting on the way to run the Brighton 10 miler in January, and I sort of came up with the idea, was like, well, how can we ask people to give money for us to run 10k when we run 10ks, fairly consistently, like once or twice a week, not a week, a month at least. So I thought, do you know what, we need to challenge ourselves. For people to give money and give a good reason to give us money, we need to push ourselves. So we came up with the idea of, before the 10 mile run, that we were going to run 10k a day for the whole week, finishing and culminating at the Brighton Marathon 10k. And that's what we're doing. By the end of the 10 mile run, it was decided when we're on the high of running 10 miles, we decided and agreed that this is what we're going to do. So we are now doing it. Starting on the 31st of March, Ben and I will be running 10k every day and finishing at the Brighton Marathon 10k on this 6th of April. It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a push. The closer we get to it, the harder we think it's going to be. But we're going to encourage other people to come along and join in with us and run with us and support us and cheer us on and maybe kick us up the arse. But yeah, you know, it's our way of showing how much Dadless Soul means to both of us and the wider community. Jaden is also running the 10k with us on the for the Brighton Marathon 10k. So look, we're all pushing ourselves, and that shows how much Dadless Soul means to us and how much good work it does. It's an awesome preventative solution of fighting, you know, isolation found in fatherhood. It's brought communities together, it's brought people together, so it's incredible. So yeah, I encourage those to donate, and hopefully this mad act of 70k over 7 days is our testament to show how much it means to both of us.
I mean, it's a ludicrous thing to do, but a brilliant thing to do, and we need to take our hats off to them. If you want to donate, QR code is just up there in the corner. You can help out. Anything you can donate, if you can at all, then it will make it easier for them to be doing those 10Ks a day. Well, I don't know what makes it easier. I mean, doing it on a bike probably like in a car, possibly that makes it easier. But I know getting plenty of donations for Dadless Soul is going to be the thing that's going to keep them going through those 7 days. So please, if you can, chuck anything into the pot. The QR code's up there. Or if you can't use that, because I never know how to use a QR code when I'm using my mobile anyway, just Google Dadless Soul 10K a day crowdfunder, and you will find it there, which is exactly what I did earlier on. Now then, it is time for our conflict management clinic, and here he is, the man, the myth, the legend. It's Alex. How you doing, Alex? You all right?
I'm very well, thank you, Jim. How are you?
I'm super. Yeah, I'm really good. Yeah, I felt like I was going to say something else there, and I don't really know where I was going to go with that. But yeah, no, I'm just good. That's it. Boring, really. We've had lots of questions, so let's start off with this one. It's a long one, but I think it's an interesting one. I run a village football club on a Saturday morning. It's a drop-in for kids and adults. I have an adult who attends with his 2 children. He's an ex-semi-pro and loves playing. Last week, he got upset at what he thought was a foul. We have no ref. It's all supposed to be fun. He then fouled someone right at the end. And when I asked if the other person was okay, he took offense and started playing very aggressively. And he and another adult almost came to blows. I had to end the game. The group's generally less good because he's there, too competitive, raises his voice to kids who are larking about and can't stand to lose. I've decided to suspend adults playing for now and want to speak with him about his behavior. I'm keen not to ban him, but to try and help him understand the group's needs. Can you help?
Okay, so as I think I've probably said before, and we are all parents, parents are a nightmare. And they frequently can be. We're as bad as our kids, and our kids are as bad as us. But at the end of the day, we're all human. So I would say that a chat with him would be a good idea. Obviously, that's got to happen. Now, I would pitch that to begin with by saying, you know, great to have you on board with your experience, because you've got a, you know, obviously a great background experience as a semi-pro. And then a little bit about, you know, working with kids is always challenging and often means we have to think differently. And you can expand on that sort of concept because, you know, any of us who have professionally worked with kids, as I've done, will know it is very different to how you work with your own kids. Then it's moving on to what the whole session and club, for want of a better word, is all about. It's about fun. Excuse the pun. There is no goal. There is no target. There is no achievement other than the fun and relaxation. Yeah. On enjoyment. That's what it's about. Yeah. It's not about a competitive knockout competition. It's not about a competitive league table position. Yeah. But I know that the sport was previously for you was very competitive. So it is it's a very different viewpoint. Yeah. And that, I think, is what you really need to strive on, is showing him that there is a different viewpoint. You're doing football for fun, not for competition. Yeah. Then I'd say, you know, I want to get the adult game on the go again. I want to be, so we can all enjoy it. And I'm looking forward, and I hope I can count on your continued support and, a laid back approach to us all having fun together. So that's not saying you're being, obnoxious, for want of a better word, but that you are not following the idea and the themes of the club, which is to have fun. If that does then help and it sorts it out and he realizes where he needs to be, great. If it doesn't, then let whatever happens, unless it's really serious, slide. Don't have a conversation about it at the time. Wait to the start of the next session or in between sessions, whatever, and then have a direct conversation. And then you have to be a little bit more blunt. But the point is, you can say at that point, well, I did talk to you about it being fun, and unfortunately that hasn't happened. Yeah. So that would be my sort of two-step approach. Try and say, it's fun. That's what we're about. And if that doesn't work, then you'll need to go for a direct approach, but do not do it straight after an incident, because at that point, temperatures and emotional levels will be up here, and to get the best out of it, you need them to be down here.
Right. What a great idea. It's just like a drop-in for dads and parents and kids to play football. That sounds like great fun, but obviously ruined by people being too competitive.
Yeah, no, I mean, that sounds absolutely fabulous. I wouldn't do it because I'd probably injure myself almost immediately. But, it's a great idea. I think it's fabulous.
Yeah, that's when I tore my hamstring playing football last year. So, yes, because I'm an old man. That's basically it. Right, we've got this second one. Says, I work in a co-working space, and there's one guy in there on a Wednesday and Thursday who's so loud and obnoxious it's ruining the working atmosphere. I've spoken to the people running it, but they don't want to challenge him. How can I reason with him to calm down so I can concentrate?
Two options. Well, actually, there are three options. First of all, work collectively with the other users, and then collectively speak to the people running it. It's going to be very quick. They're running it to make money. If they've got 55, 65, 75% of their customers turning around, we don't want that one customer, it's a pretty cut and dried business decision as to what you're going to do. That's option one. Yeah. Let them do the hard bit. You just get a collective of the people you work with who want to achieve the same as you. Secondly, you have the direct approach. Chat to him casually in the kitchen area, or over a coffee. All these workspace areas have these sorts of places in them, and just say about how good the space is, how everyone enjoys the peace, the ability to quietly get on with their work, and that they tend to save the excitement for later. Yeah, so it's slightly veiled, and it's all a question of how much he can see through the subtlety. If he can see the subtlety and then deals with it, great. If he can't see the subtlety, then he's probably, to be honest, never going to do anything about it, because he just sees that that's normal behavior. Yeah. And the third option, well, there are plenty of co-working spaces in this day and age. He may have to choose, you may have to choose. Sorry, that's the last one's a bit of a cop-out, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I understand though. That's the thing is, if someone's not willing to change and no one who has the power to change it is going to use that power, that's the kind of your only option, isn't it, really? Or just stay there and get really annoyed.
It is. And without doing a spoiler on the next question, actually, it's about, as young people, I was probably one of the last generations where we were taught to face up to challenges and confront, not in a horrible way. Whereas these days, I know my children at school are not actually taught to face up to challenges in the same way that we were. So it migrates through into adult life that we don't like confrontation, and we're not prepared to do it, or we're not given the tools to do it in a constructive way.
Is now the time to stand up and say, I can't stand confrontation? Or is that too confrontational? Oh, I don't know. It's tough.
It's not at all. A lot of people, I don't like confrontation at all. Yeah. And I'm, I deal with confrontation on a fairly regular basis. The abuse that is hurled at all of us that work in the NHS is regular and relentless. But it's about the fact that, you do have to learn to develop a resilience and develop a way of trying to manage it. I will admit, at nearly 6'4" and 220 pounds and fairly bald, I do tend to command a fair amount of respect from a physical presence only. And I do sometimes use that, and I accept that I'm lucky. But it's actually about having the word skills to de-escalate things, but to still be happy to talk to people and challenge them. It's not about saying they're wrong. It's just about saying, I think we need to do this collectively differently.
And actually, what you often find, and I know it's easy to say this, but it is true, is that the confrontation is never as difficult, or very, very rarely as difficult as you think it's going to be. Obviously, there will be occasions,
Yeah.
and I appreciate, when you've got someone shouting at you because you're an NHS worker, and sometimes that is as bad as you think. But
Yeah.
in many of those situations where you're like, oh, I've got to make this phone call and I don't want to make it, it usually goes a lot better than you think it's going to.
Yeah, it does. And it's actually all about the way you approach, and you approach with a smile and a friendly face. Then that's sometimes half the battle won.
Yes. All right, on to that third question. My son just completely closes up at the hint of a challenge. He's a great kid, but I worried we've shielded him too much from tough situations. He's having extra English lessons at school ahead of his SATs, but he hates them and the others in his group. He's really upset, but it's only half an hour a week. I don't want to force him to go, but he needs to know that sometimes we have to do things we don't completely enjoy. How do I help him see that?
I'm guessing by the reference to SATs that he's probably year 6 and age 10 or 11. That's so I'm going to base my answer on that sort of age group. There's a great expression: the end justifies the means. We know this because we frequently have to deal with these situations where we have to, we know that we've got to go and face the shops on Saturday to do the supermarket shop because that's the only day we can go. And we know it's going to be hell, but we go there and we do it, and we come home because the end is we're actually going to have some food. And in the days of COVID, toilet paper, to survive the next week. So we know that. And as kids, we learned that, and we learned that from adults. So it is down to us as the adults of today to teach the adults of tomorrow that they've got to be able to face up to the fact that they have to do some things that are unpleasant or not nice because the end is worth it. Yeah. Try showing your son some of the things that you've done in the past that perhaps are not that great, but were enablers for you to then achieve something that had a tangible benefit. I'll give you an example. When my kids were young, and I'm talking sort of, preschool, early primary school age, I was away at work all over London and the Southeast. And sometimes I was staying away in contractors' hotels overnight. And my incredible wife did an amazing job bringing up the kids, but they missed me and I missed them. When they got older, they understood, because I talked to them about it, that I was away to be able to improve my career, to earn the money, to earn more money so that they can get the iPhone they want, they can get the football they want, whatever it is. And you put it in very materialistic terms, but you put it, fairly simply, but you explain that. From the point of view of challenges, give him challenges to do. Try and give him challenges that are fairly mundane, boring things, but things that he will achieve. Yeah. And that will start to build his confidence in being able to do things. Yeah. And it starts to be a, how can I do this rather than a why I can't do this.
Right.
Yeah. The challenges can be physical, they can be mental, they can be both. It doesn't really matter. But do allow him to fail on a few challenges. Now, that's not me being sadistic and horrible and Victorian. That is me saying, actually, to fail is only enabling you to make it easier to succeed. And my rationale for that is, if you failed doing it one way, well, that's one less way you have to consider to then succeed next time. So you're narrowing the odds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's my thought process behind saying, allow children to fail sometimes, because if they don't fail, and at some point in their lives, we all have a failure, that's a guarantee. If we don't prepare them for that, then that will be catastrophic. So let them fail at small, simple things, small, simple, mundane challenges. Get them to succeed at most of them, but the odd one, let them fail, but then get them to succeed at it later on when they've realised there's another way of doing it.
Okay. No, that makes sense. That does make a lot of sense. On the subject of, the end justifying the means and having to do horrible things just for that bit of reward, do you mean also sitting through the entire Easter performance just to see your kids solo?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's one of those things that we all have to do. I remember doing it on a frequent basis.
And if they're in different key stages, you might have to do it twice on one day.
Yeah, that is absolutely fantastic. Talk to your GP. There are plenty of medicines. I didn't say that.
Alex, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Some really cracking help there once again. Thank you very much.
No problem.
This is the Daddler Soul Sessions for Thursday, the 6th of March, 2025. Professor Anna Tarrant is on the way very soon, talking about the Father Inclusion Hub. But first of all, let me play you this. It's Dan talked about it earlier on. This is going to be our Worthing Dads Only event later on this month, and it's going to be one you will not want to miss.
Well, obviously, I'm aware of Daddler Soul and have been for a while. So and I know you, so I knew it was going to be a fun event, and that's what it was. And there was a huge amount of warmth in the room. One thing that struck me was there was no awkwardness at the beginning. Like, I didn't really know anyone here, but right from the beginning, there was really nice chats. Everyone got on really easy. Conversation flowed. So there was warmth, but it wasn't awkward or stiff. It was a laugh. I had a laugh, and that's all you want really out of any experience.
So, would you recommend it?
Definitely. Come down. I mean, it's great. Blokes need more things to do that don't involve like going to the pub and getting pissed. This is a great environment with smart, funny blokes who are a laugh, who are interesting, who are a real mix in terms of background, and it's just like it's important to keep socialising, and it's important to find new ways of doing it. And I would do it here with Daddler Soul because it's a great bunch of lads.
So you get your tickets for that. In fact, I'm going to put the little QR code up there right now. Hang on. There you go. It's up there. Nearly deleted it by mistake. Once again, the Daddler Soul Sessions is shambolic. It's meant to be. That's part of the joy of it. So, if you want to come end of the month, it will sell out. Sam Delaney's Dad's Only meetup in Worthing. Come along to that. And he's very funny. He was a guest on this, a year or so ago, and he was just really fascinating. But he's brutally honest and he's hilariously funny. Those two things going together just absolutely, make it. So make sure that you get tickets for that if you are close to the Worthing area. There's no Brighton Dad's Only event this month. There was like a double booking and stuff. So if you want to make that your Brighton Dad's Only event as well, then make sure you get over to Worthing, and it will be definitely well worth it. This is the Daddler Soul Sessions. On the show now is Professor Anna Tarrant. Hello, how you doing? Oh, I can't hear you. Oh, this is like in the COVID days. I think you're on mute. Oh, no. Can't hear Anna. Okay. If you, my tip is always there's a little thing that says settings down there. You go and see what it's trying to use for your microphone, because this software that we use for this always chooses the most inappropriate thing to be your microphone. Just I come on this quite often when I'm trying to record with Dan or something, and it tries to make something weird my microphone, and I end up just going at Dan quite a lot. Oh.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Hey, hi. Tech issues aside, hi. Nice to be here.
It was like a nice little throwback to the COVID.
Yeah. The fear and the horror.
Yeah, exactly. When you can see people going, oh my gosh.
Yeah, you're on mute.
Oh, those were the days, right? I can't believe it's 5 years ago. It's like
Yeah, it's flown by, hasn't it? Yeah, it was such a weird world, and yeah, it's we've just sort of gone back to normal so quickly. It feels like, but then still have these hangovers of being online and not seeing each other. It's really strange.
Yeah, it's really, really odd. Very, very strange situation. So anyway, Professor Anna Tarrant, hello. Welcome to
Hi.
the Dadler Soul session.
Hi.
You have come on tonight because you have been sort of the brains behind the Father Inclusion Hub. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
What is a Father Inclusion Hub?
That's a really good question. So, I need to tell you a bit of backstory, I guess, about me and how it's come about, if that's okay. So, the Father Inclusion Hub responds to research evidence that we've been generating, my team and I, for well over a decade now, that dads really, really want to be involved in their kids' lives. And that's probably really obvious to everybody who attends Dadler Soul and comes onto this or listens to the podcast. But at a societal level, and in terms of services and also family policy, we're not very effective at including dads or men as fathers. I think we very often focus on men as economic providers, as workers, but increasingly things are shifting. Men's identities as family members are being taken much more seriously. Their role in caregiving is being taken more seriously, as well as providing economic and financial support to their families. But across services, what's happening is that professionals are saying, look, we know dads want to be involved, but we're predominantly supporting women. And that's a bit of a strange kind of paradox, really, in some ways, in that if we just support women in their own right, we then don't necessarily see their relationships with men. And the idea, I think, that they're kind of a risk, men might be a risk to their partner dominates, and that's really problematic. Based on my research and my conversations with professionals in public health, social services, the third sector, any organisation really that works with families, what I've been hearing is that there's a whole wealth of knowledge out there about what works to better support men as fathers and to enable them to more effectively engage in their family lives and support their children and their partners. But that gets lost really quickly. So the Father Inclusion Hub is basically an archive of resources from organisations, including Dadler Soul, and including people from public health, and again from all the different organisations that I've just referred to, as a way of making visible the fact that we need to better include fathers, but also provide information about how to do it. Mm-hmm. In some ways, it's really straightforward. It's about interpersonal relationships between professionals and men. So asking dad how he is, asking about dad, but in a more positive way, in an effective way, rather than just saying, is dad a risk to you in any way? Those are the kinds of questions that women get presented with. I know I did when I was having my children, and I was thinking, well, my partner's wonderful. Why would you be asking those kinds of questions? And I did kind of understand it, but it positioned him in a really particular way at an exciting time in our lives. But then it's also about changing services as well. So providing space to audit services to check if they are engaging effectively with fathers. If they're not, then how more effectively that can be done. And then longer term, to really kind of campaign for policy change. So requiring of the government to create guidance, requiring of public health institutions to engage with fathers in terms of them as a resource to their partner, but also as people in their own right, people with their own health needs, and people who are affected by becoming a parent, perhaps in slightly different ways to women, but equally affected.
Mm-hmm. I know we've had a number of guests on who've maybe talked on maybe some of those subjects about where the sort of almost dehumanizing approach becomes, you're not part of this conversation. I know Ben Morehouse we've had on, who's he and his partner experienced a stillbirth, and one of his takeaways from the fact is that, of course, there's a lot of concentration of efforts on the mum, who, has been through a hugely traumatic experience, but he felt completely left alone. Like basically the onus was on him to be strong. and there was no almost recognition of his grief, I guess,
Yeah.
in the whole process. So why do you think these attitudes have become so ingrained?
Well, they are generationally ingrained. I'm a sociologist, so I'm really interested in gender. I'm interested in questions of why society operates in the way it does, and where that creates inequalities, or where there's scope for change. Historically, we have very much seen men as economic providers and women as caregivers, and often that has obscured the fact that men and women both engage in both of those things and always have done. The extent to which people are financially rewarded for that obviously varies between genders. In terms of public health, it is essential that women are supported, especially when giving birth and all those kinds of things. It's only really recently that men have been even allowed in the room when children, when partners giving birth. And it's an interesting question, and it's one that I think we're still grappling with in some ways, because in lots of contexts it's common sense, that dad's very much involved in that situation, and he's becoming a dad potentially for the first time as well, and it's a big deal. But I think there's a whole range of contextual reasons as well. I think services increasingly are being squeezed, so the time that professionals have to engage with people is much more constrained. Again, there's this kind of historic assumption of men as risk, and that's kind of linked to fears around that if we don't see those things, then that becomes kind of a problem for the organisation. But most of the time, we know that men are also influenced or affected by these things. Again, want to be a major support to their partner, and do need that time and support to be able to adapt and adjust to the challenges of becoming a parent for the first time, second time, third time. It's always a major life change for everybody. So yeah, I think gender's a key part of it, but it's problematic.
Okay. So, I mean, would you say maybe societal changes are happening in the way people view dads? Are public services maybe a bit behind the curve on that, or is it playing catch up? Is that what we're thinking?
Yeah, definitely. So certainly in terms of research, there's evidence that men express more intention to be involved in their children's lives. They want to be there for their children. I think that was probably always the case. Again, just sort of, if you look at historical research, we've always looked again at men as workers. And actually there's some really interesting social history at the moment where looking at archive-based data, if we look at men as fathers, we can see again that they have always been involved in family life to some extent or in some ways. But certainly if you look at more recent evidence, there's global reports at the moment called State of the World's Fathers, where ideologically speaking, men right across the spectrum, because men aren't a homogenous group, not all the same. We've got men in low-income circumstances, we've got men of different ethnicities, all sorts of different father groups are coming forward and saying, yeah, we want to be involved in our children's lives. It's important to us. It's good for our well-being. We recognise the benefits for our children and for our partners, even if that's a co-parent and they're no longer together. But the problem we have, and this is a global issue, is that systems and services and policies haven't caught up. If you think about the UK, we've got one of the worst paternity leave offers in Europe. I think we're like the second worst in Europe at the moment. Men getting 2 weeks, of care, of leave, and then going straight back to work. And that doesn't reflect what people want. It doesn't reflect those cultural shifts. It doesn't reflect that recognition that men want to be involved and want to be supportive of their partners, and also to recover as well from these major life changes. So a big part of my research and my work is about advocating for that change, advocating for broader level policy change in terms of shared parental leave as well, paternity leave, but also making sure that within systems we're seeing men and able to support them more effectively.
Is this the same in sort of other areas of society as well? Is it where something changes and the sort of policy takes its time to catch up with it?
That's an interesting question, because I think, yeah, it varies, and I think sometimes policy nudges. There's a sort of behavioural sort of approach to policy where policy is introduced to nudge particular behaviours.
Right.
But I don't think that's the case in this example. I think there's this cultural shift, and there's this shift within families where there are greater commitments to gender equality. Again, men seeing the benefits of being involved in very directly in the care and nurture of their children. And actually we're doing a lot of work sort of at a grassroots level to try and change and shift things. And there is a bit of policy apathy right at the top with this. And I think to some extent that's about having the right argument and making the right arguments. Part of the argument that for this sort of shift will be economic. Actually, if we support men to be involved in care as well as work, then women can stay in work for longer if they want to. Over the life course, women therefore are able to, save towards their pensions and things. So again, there's these kind of long-term payoffs that I don't think are necessarily recognised at that top level of policy. So I've introduced this language of father inclusion based on, my engagements with professionals across a whole range of different sectors, because it's something tangible. It's a vision we can all work towards, albeit in different sectors and in different contexts, but with the aim of creating a movement where we can actually say to policymakers, look, there's social, economic, cultural benefits to doing this, and people want this. We know they do. We now need the policies to reflect what people want.
Yeah, it's interesting. The wording is definitely interesting, isn't it? Because you have to, for anything, politicians just want to look good, right? They want to. I mean, I get, and it's understandable. You're only in for like 5 years. Gary, you've got 5 years at the most. That's which I think is why a lot of thinking is quite short term.
Yeah.
So if they're going to introduce something, it's got to be something that's like, this is benefit to us all. As you say, you need to sell the benefits to everyone, so it becomes a no-brainer, I guess. Is there anything that we can sort of do to help that sort of happen?
I think, dad's groups like Dad La Soul, having the conversation and raising awareness of this. This is something that we can all relate to. I think that's really powerful. We all have some connection to our families, and just as a female myself, and as a mom, and as a wife, all of those things. Men are in our lives, and to sort of absent them, which is the language I've been using around sort of different services, is nonsensical in some ways. We don't live in those ways. So I think the fact that we can all connect to it in some way, it provokes emotional reactions, is really important. But also showing that this matters across the board. This is not just kind of a select group of people saying dads should be involved. And I'm just thinking about sort of the men's rights movements, and we've kind of moved on, I think, from that time when that was kind of quite problematic. That was much more about men's rights versus women. We've kind of come to a space now where the languages have become more sophisticated. I think our thinking about involvement of fathers is more sophisticated. This kind of recognition that this is a social justice agenda, in the sense that when dads are involved, that benefits the whole family, it benefits the entirety of society. So groups like Dad La Soul, seeing those nationally is incredibly powerful, because they're powerful voices for advocacy for this kind of movement. And I think the more we invest in that, the more that's researched, the more we speak to power through those groups, but in a way that we recognise the wider equality value of all of this, the more likely we're going to win that argument, I think.
In terms of research, so obviously you've dedicated a lot of time to research. Were there any barriers towards that? Was it something that was unusual at the time when you were starting doing that?
Yeah, a little bit, I guess. It's interesting being a woman in this space, definitely. So I get questions like, why are you researching fathers and men, and what's that all about? what I became interested in my early academic career was research on granddads, funny enough. So I was the kind of I research young dads now, so I kind of flipped flipped the focus. But when I went out and I researched with my granddad. I did a focus group with him and some other local men as part of my degree, and they all said, why no one's ever asked us about being a granddad. No one's ever been interested in us in that way. And fascinating part of that research was I would go in and say, just tell me about yourself, and they would all tell me about their jobs and all about their employment history. And then I'd go, but tell me about being a granddad. And it was so powerful and moving. You know, they were like, oh gosh, we've got the time now to invest in our grandchildren that we couldn't in our own children. We feel like we've missed out on all that family time with our children because of work pressures, all of that. Yeah, I think it was kind of follow that trail really. Why are we looking at people in that way, or not looking at them in certain ways? You know, when actually these are really important parts of society and the way in which society operates. You know, family's key to all of that really.
But like grandparents, where would the world be without grandparents? I mean, I guess that's the thing is, you know, as more people work and they work for longer, I guess it's you're really seeing grandparents step up. You notice it in the school holidays. If
Yeah.
you like, I mean, we live near Leeds, and we'll go to Leeds, and it's like half the people you see are obviously grandparents with their grandkids filling some time in the school holidays.
Yeah.
Like economically, for the economics wise, I guess, you know, how much are they saving the country in terms of parents not having to take time off and stuff? It's fascinating to know.
Yeah, it is millions. I mean, I've not checked the recent figures, but certainly when I was doing my PhD, it was millions of pounds. You know, because it's kind of that not free. Well, it is free childcare to some extent, because you know those grandparents aren't being sort of supported for that necessarily. But yeah, certainly when I was researching that at the time, that was quite novel and new. And I now research young fatherhood, so young men aged 25 and under. And in the fatherhood space, that is quite unusual, I think. You know, I think a lot of research and a lot of focus on men as fathers tends to be on men who are employed and those who you know, are perhaps less visible again in terms of services. But it's really important to hear from men who experience marginalisation, I think, and stigma and disadvantage, because they still want to be there for their kids too. But they get overlooked very often, or they're sort of hyper visible. I use that language, you know, like policymakers go, well, these absent men, you know, they're you know, run away from their kids and they're not interested, they're irresponsible and all of that. So my research was kind of quite novel in that it was saying, well, let's go and research with those men, let's go talk to them, let's actually find out where they've gone to. If they're absent, where are they? You know, and I think that question's been quite different in this space.
Has anything sort of popped out of that research that's, you know, kind of caught your attention? Anything unusual that you weren't expecting, maybe?
Oh, so much. I mean, it's very emotional research. The dads that we work with, we've been working with them, with certain cohorts of young dads for well over a decade. You know, so one of the core things really is that, you know, we get told that they're absent and feckless and irresponsible, but some of these young men we've been working with, you know, are now in their 30s. They've got incredible relationships with their children, and they're incredibly connected to their children, you know, in ways that we just don't hear when sort of policymakers or the media and commentators are just sort of down on them, really. The other thing that we do in the research is it's very much about how we support young dads or dads in being part of the change. And again, you know, these young men are incredibly amazing, really. I don't know, for want of a better word, but they, you know, they stand in front of an audience of professionals and they say, look, take us seriously as dads. You know, we're doing this incredible stuff. We are facing challenges. We do need help with these things sometimes. But for me, it's actually a really simple thing, and that's probably one of the biggest surprises, is that just that simple thing of turning to a dad and saying, "How are you, Dad?" You know, is massive for those young men, and I think for most men actually, because it tells them that they're a dad and it embeds that idea really early on. So there's a huge amount of power and responsibility, I think, in terms of how different professionals engage with men in terms of then setting them off on that journey.
Yeah. I mean, you know, young dads are fine, but I'm just jealous of them.
Yeah.
They just have the energy, you know. I didn't have my first child till I was, 35, and now I'm so tired, Anna. I'm
Yeah,
exhausted.
yeah.
I'm just
I
exhausted.
get that.
I'm never gonna be not exhausted, am I?
No, it doesn't go away. I've got a 12-year-old and a 6-year-old, and it doesn't go away.
And these lads, by the time their kids are old, they'll still have a bit of life left in them.
They do know that as well. That's one of the things
Yeah.
we say. You know what's great about being a young dad, and like having the energy.
Absolutely. They don't tear their hamstrings at football because they're just old men like me. Anyway. So what happens next then? So the Father Inclusion Hub is there. So who are you hoping is going to be using that?
So it's a growing archive. So I use that kind of that way of looking at it. All of my work is about. I'm sort of I do the academic side of things, but the people out there are the experts by experience. So at the moment, we're asking people from different organisations, regardless of sector, who have examples of effective good practice about what works with engaging with dads, to get in touch. And we're creating what we call these resource packs on the website. And on there is open access, so free to access PDFs of father inclusion posters. One thing that dads respond to really well is something that says dad on it, not just parent, because again, gender and parents often seen as mum. Imagery of dads, all of that kind of thing. We've got service audits on there from previous organisations that have developed these. One example is Small Steps, Big Changes in Nottingham. We've got a whole host of their materials from their father inclusion strategy. We've also got videos as well, and basically anything that promotes fatherhood and inclusive ways of engaging with dads is what we're interested in. We're also, this is going to be a useful resource for dads, we think, as well. So, it's we're starting to build kind of a map, if you like, of services and organisations that exist in the UK. So, in terms of being able to see what's available, who you might get in touch with, then there's space there for dads to have a look as well, and see what's going on in the UK, because we do some really good work in the UK, and it's about making sure we don't lose that, making sure we have a place where people can access that information.
Cool. Well, that's amazing to have. Sorry, I'm a little distracted because I'm trying to get the thing up on screen now. There we go. Here we go. Any second now, it's going to come up on the screen. There we go.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Yeah, do visit the site. There's lots of contact information on there as well to get in touch. The other thing I would just say is that we have another site called Following Your Fathers Further, which is our research study. And occasionally we do put out calls for dads to participate in that, and also professionals. So do follow us on our socials as well. But yeah, we love to have those conversations because that's how we learn.
Well, certainly, if you need us to pass anything on, do get in contact, and we can stick that on our socials and share that as well. We would be more than happy to do that. Anna Tarrant, thank you so much for coming on. Absolutely fascinating. Really good to have a conversation with you and find out a bit more.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for having me. Thanks.
No, it's been great. Really good. Thank you. This has been the Dadless Soul sessions for March, the 6th of March, 2025. I don't know why I keep telling you the date. You could look at your phone and find that out. Next month, it's going to be the first Thursday of April. Not sure who the main guest is going to be at the moment, but if you follow us at Dadless Soul on the socials, we'll let you know as soon as we have that information. Thank you very much to everyone for joining us, to Dan, to Alex, and to Anna as well. And thank you for